The letter that arrived at 3 a.m. would have canceled the largest military operation in human history until Eisenhower read the final paragraph that changed everything. Southwick House, Portsmouth, England, June 4, 1944. The 3:17 a.m. Rain hammers against the blackout curtains like machine gun fire. Inside the converted manor house that serves as Supreme Allied headquarters, the most crucial 48 hours in human history are unfolding. Tomorrow, or rather today, since dawn is only hours away, 160,000 Allied soldiers are scheduled to assault the beaches of Nazi-occupied France in Operation Overlord, D-Day. The invasion that will either liberate Europe or end in the greatest military disaster ever recorded. General Dwight David Eisenhower sits alone in his austere quarters, still fully dressed at 3 a.m. because sleep is impossible when you hold the fate of civilization in your hands. At 53, his face shows the weight of command, the deep lines around his eyes, the permanent furrow in his brow, the slight tremor in his fingers that comes from drinking too much coffee and making decisions that will kill thousands of young men before breakfast. The room is spartanly furnished. A narrow military cot, a simple wooden desk covered with weather reports and invasion plans, a single lamp casting harsh shadows on maps of the Normandy coast. On the wall, a photograph of his wife Mamie, the only personal touch in a room designed for war, not comfort. Outside, he can hear the constant rumble of trucks, tanks, and half-tracks moving through the darkness toward embarkation points. 160,000 men preparing to cross the English Channel into hell. The weather reports spread across his desk make grim reading. Storm systems moving in from the Atlantic, high winds, heavy seas, cloud cover so thick that Allied air support will be flying blind. His meteorologist, Group Captain James Stagg, has been increasingly pessimistic with each hourly update. The conditions that made June 5 look promising 48 hours ago have deteriorated into a nightmare scenario that could drown the invasion before it begins. Eisenhower picks up the latest weather brief, dated 2:45 a.m. Stagg's handwriting is barely legible, rushed and urgent, conditions deteriorating rapidly. Wave heights 4-6 feet in channel, ceiling dropping to 500 feet. Recommend postponement. The words that could delay the invasion for weeks, maybe months. The words that could hand Hitler time to reinforce the Atlantic Wall, move his panzer divisions, turn Normandy into an impregnable fortress. But postponement isn't just a tactical problem. It's a strategic catastrophe waiting to happen. The invasion has been planned for 2 years, every detail coordinated between American, British, and Canadian forces. The logistics alone are staggering. 5,000 ships, 13,000 aircraft, stockpiles of ammunition and fuel that took months to accumulate. Most critically, the Germans don't know when or where the invasion is coming. Every day of delay is another day for enemy intelligence to discover Allied plans. A knock interrupts his brooding. 3 sharp raps, the agreed signal from his aide-de-camp, Lieutenant Colonel James Gall. Eisenhower calls "Enter," his voice hoarse from too many cigarettes and too little sleep. Gall steps inside, his usually immaculate uniform showing signs of the long night, wrinkled, damp from the rain, mud on his boots from running between command posts. In his hand, a sealed envelope bearing the distinctive red wax seal of the War Office in London, top secret classification. Personal for Supreme Allied Commander. Sir, Galt says, his Scottish accent more pronounced when he's tired. This just came through the encrypted wireless from London, marked immediate action required and signed by the Prime Minister himself. Eisenhower's blood chills. A personal message from Winston Churchill at 3 a.m. can only mean catastrophic news. Has German intelligence discovered the invasion plans? Has Hitler moved his reserve panzer divisions to Normandy? Has Stalin decided to make a separate peace with Germany, leaving the Western Allies to face the full might of the Wehrmacht alone? He breaks the seal with trembling fingers. The letter is handwritten in Churchill's distinctive script in bold strokes that slash across the page like a cavalry saber. As Eisenhower reads, his face goes pale, then flushed with anger, then settles into the grim mask of a man who realizes he's been betrayed by the people he trusted most. The letter reads, "My dear Eisenhower, I write this in the early hours of what may be our darkest day. I have just concluded an emergency session with the War Cabinet and our intelligence chiefs. What I must tell you will shake your faith in our enterprise, but you must know the truth before you send our boys to die on those beaches. German intelligence has infiltrated our planning at the highest levels. They know Overlord is coming. They know it's Normandy. They know it's tomorrow. Field Marshal Rommel has spent the past 72 hours moving 3 full panzer divisions to positions overlooking the landing beaches. What we planned as a surprise attack has become a carefully prepared slaughter. Our boys will be walking into a killing field designed specifically to destroy them. Every beach is now defended by concentrated artillery. Every approach route is pre-targeted by German mortars. Every landing craft will face crossfire from machine gun nests positioned exactly where our intelligence said there were none. I cannot in good conscience ask you to proceed with an operation that has been compromised so completely. The responsible choice, the only choice that preserves our forces for future opportunities, is to cancel Overlord immediately. Evacuation ships are standing by to retrieve our forces before dawn. We can claim weather postponement and reorganize for an invasion next spring when security can be re-established. The decision is yours alone, but I pray you make the right choice for our cause and our men. Winston Churchill. Eisenhower reads the letter twice, then a third time, his hands shaking with rage and disbelief. 3 years of planning, millions of tons of equipment. The hopes of enslaved Europe, all shattered by German spies who penetrated Allied security at its core. He thinks of the 160,000 men loading into landing craft at this very moment, trusting him to lead them to victory, not into a pre-planned massacre. This is exactly when Eisenhower's world collapsed. But then he noticed something strange about Churchill's letter. He examines the handwriting more closely. Churchill's script, yes, but something feels off. The pressure is uneven, as if written under stress. Some words are misspelled. Churchill, despite his dramatic flair, is usually meticulous about spelling, and the phrasing, our boys and the responsible choice. These aren't Churchill's usual expressions. Churchill speaks of our lads and the honorable course. Lieutenant Colonel Galt still stands at attention, waiting. Eisenhower looks at him sharply. James, who delivered this message, which wireless operator decoded it? Sir, it came through the Auxiliary Communications Center. Duty operator was Sergeant Davies. Sir, Welsh fellow. Been with Signals Intelligence for 2 years. Sergeant Davies? Not one of our regular day code staff? No, sir. He was covering for Corporal Morrison, who took ill suddenly this evening. You haven't seen the real betrayal yet. Eisenhower's strategic mind starts connecting dots that form a terrifying pattern. James, get me Colonel Bruce from counterintelligence immediately, and bring me our latest German intercepts, everything we've decoded in the past 48 hours. While Gaunt hurries out, Eisenhower studies the letter again. The paper feels wrong, too new, too clean for a message that supposedly traveled through multiple relay stations from London to Portsmouth. The ink is still slightly wet, as if written recently, not hours ago in London. Colonel David Bruce arrives within minutes, still buttoning his jacket. As head of Allied counterintelligence in the European theater, Bruce has spent the war hunting German spies and preventing exactly this kind of security breach. His lean face and sharp eyes miss nothing. It's why Eisenhower trusts him with the most sensitive intelligence operations. Sir, Lieutenant Colonel Gaunt said you need to see the German intercepts urgently. David, first tell me, has German intelligence shown any indication they know about Overlord? Bruce shakes his head decisively. Negative, sir. In fact, quite the opposite. Our latest Enigma decrypts show German high command still believes the invasion will target Pas de Calais. Rommel's been reinforcing the wrong beaches for weeks. Hitler's convinced our forces at Dover are the main invasion army. Wait a minute, don't miss this crucial detail. Eisenhower shows Bruce the Churchill letter. As the counterintelligence chief reads, his expression shifts from confusion to alarm to cold fury. Sir, this is a fabrication. A very sophisticated one, but completely false. Prime Minister Churchill sent no such communication. More importantly, the intelligence claims in this letter are demonstrably wrong. German forces in Normandy remain exactly where we expected them. Minimal coastal defense, no panzer reserves, no indication of preparation for invasion. Then who wrote this letter, David? And why? Sir, this is all the hallmarks of Operation Bernhard, German psychological warfare designed to create confusion and doubt at critical moments. But the sophistication suggests they have someone inside our communications network, someone with access to official letterhead, official seals, and detailed knowledge of our command structure. The implications hit Eisenhower like a physical blow. There's a German agent inside Supreme Allied Headquarters, someone with enough access to intercept communications, forge official documents, and potentially compromise the entire invasion. But more immediately, someone who almost succeeded in convincing the Supreme Allied Commander to cancel D-Day hours before it began. You won't believe what he discovered next, but this revelation would expose the deepest German penetration of Allied intelligence. Bruce continues his analysis, his voice tight with professional anger. Sir, the psychological profile is textbook German manipulation. They know you're under enormous pressure about the weather. They know you're concerned about casualties. So they create a scenario that gives you a responsible excuse to postpone, claiming the operation is compromised, making delay seem like the prudent choice rather than cowardice. But how did they know I'd receive this at exactly the right moment to create maximum doubt? Because, sir, whoever wrote this has been monitoring your schedule, your briefings, your decision-making process. They knew you'd be alone at 3 a.m. reviewing weather reports. They knew this would be the moment when your resolve might waver. Eisenhower walks to the window, pushing aside the blackout curtain slightly. In the distance, the channel is barely visible in the pre-dawn darkness, but he can see lights thousands of landing craft beginning their journey toward the beaches of Normandy. Men who trust him completely, sailing toward what might be victory or disaster. David, I need you to find this spy, tonight, before any more damage is done. Already on it, sir. I'm pulling communication logs for the past week, cross-referencing access lists, checking every person who had advanced knowledge of your location and schedule. That's when everything changed. Because Bruce's investigation would uncover something that shook Allied command to its core. Within 2 hours, Bruce returns with devastating news. The spy isn't some anonymous German agent, it's Captain Richards, Eisenhower's own meteorological liaison mind who had access to weather briefings, communication schedules, and most critically, the psychological insight to know exactly when Eisenhower would be most susceptible to doubt. Richards had been feeding German intelligence detailed information about Allied invasion planning for months. The fake Churchill letter was his masterpiece and a final attempt to sabotage D-Day by convincing Eisenhower himself to cancel it. But there's more. When Allied security forces arrest Richards at 5:30 a.m., they discover he's already transmitted detailed intelligence about D-Day timing and locations to German command. The invasion hasn't been canceled, but it's been compromised. Sir, Bruce reports, his face grim, Richards transmitted our complete battle plans 6 hours ago. German forces in Normandy know we're coming. They know where we're landing. They're preparing. This should have been the moment when D-Day died, when Eisenhower called off the invasion and condemned Europe to months more of Nazi occupation. Any rational commander would have postponed, regrouped, planned for a different time and place. But then Eisenhower read the final intercept that Richards had transmitted to German intelligence and realized the spy had made one crucial mistake. The German message, decoded by Allied cryptographers, included Richards' assessment of Allied capabilities. In his arrogance, the spy had systematically underestimated Allied strength, suggesting that even with advance warning, German forces couldn't withstand the full weight of the invasion. Richards' own intelligence report to the Germans read, Allied force estimates inflated for deception purposes. Actual invasion strength, approximately 60% of claimed numbers. German defensive positions adequate to repel assault if properly warned. But Richards was wrong. Allied strength wasn't inflated, it was actually underestimated in most official reports for security reasons. The 160,000 men heading for Normandy represented only the first wave. Behind them, another 850,000 Allied troops were staged in England, ready to follow up success. Eisenhower realized the spy's betrayal had become a double deception. German intelligence now believed they faced a weaker force than was actually approaching their shores. Just when everything seemed hopeless, Eisenhower made the most audacious decision in military history. He not only refused to cancel D-Day, he accelerated it. "James," he tells his aide, "get me Admirals Ramsey and Kirk immediately. Tell them we're moving the invasion up by 3 hours. Instead of dawn assault, we hit the beaches in pre-dawn darkness." Sir, that changes everything: naval bombardment schedules, air support timing, coordination between services. Exactly. If the Germans know our plans, we change our plans. They're expecting us at dawn, we hit them at 4 a.m. when they're still preparing for our arrival. The next 6 hours become a logistical masterpiece. Eisenhower personally coordinates the time change with every major commander. Naval forces adjust bombardment schedules. Air units retarget their preliminary strikes. Most critically, 160,000 soldiers already aboard landing craft receive new orders while crossing the channel in darkness. What should have been the cancellation of D-Day becomes its salvation. By the time German defenders realize the invasion timetable has changed, Allied forces are already on the beaches, establishing footholds before the enemy can fully respond. This time the real shock came at dawn, when the sun rises over Normandy on June 6, 1944. Allied flags are flying over 5 separate beachheads. The spy who tried to destroy D-Day had actually provided the information that allowed Eisenhower to achieve tactical surprise through adaptive planning. But the story's most remarkable twist comes 3 days later. Captain Richards, under interrogation, reveals he wasn't just a German spy, he was a double agent working for both sides. His original mission from German intelligence was to sabotage Allied invasion plans. But Allied counterintelligence had identified him months earlier and turned him into an unwitting source of disinformation. The fake Churchill letter wasn't just German psychological warfare. It was the final test of Eisenhower's resolve, orchestrated by Allied intelligence to ensure their commander would remain committed even when faced with apparent betrayal. Colonel Bruce's final report to Eisenhower read, "Richards believed he was serving German interests by providing intelligence and attempting to delay the invasion. He never knew we were monitoring his communications and feeding him selected information designed to confuse German planning." His betrayal of D-Day timing actually provided German forces with misleading intelligence that contributed to Allied tactical surprise. Eisenhower sits in his quarters 3 weeks after D-Day, reading Bruce's report as Allied forces pour through the Normandy breakout, driving toward Paris. The letter that nearly canceled the invasion lies on his desk. The reminder that in war, nothing is exactly what it seems. The greatest deception of D-Day wasn't the inflatable tanks and dummy installations designed to fool German reconnaissance. It was a fake letter designed to test whether the Supreme Allied commander had the resolve to proceed when everything seemed lost. That's how D-Day was saved. Not by perfect planning or favorable weather, but by a commander who recognized deception and chose courage over caution. Eisenhower's decision in the early hours of June 6 didn't just launch the liberation of Europe. It proved that leadership means acting on conviction even when betrayal seems certain. The letter that could have canceled D-Day instead became the reason it succeeded. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from avoiding deception, but from seeing through it and acting anyway. So when you face moments that test your resolve, when trusted sources tell you to abandon your mission, when every instinct says retreat, what do you choose? Safety or courage? Caution or conviction? Delay or action? Because sometimes the voice telling you to quit isn't wisdomous. It's fear wearing the mask of prudence. And sometimes the greatest leaders are those who read the fine print, question the obvious, and march toward victory even when everyone says it's impossible. Eisenhower understood this. That's why on June 6, 1944, he didn't just launch D-Day, he saved it. And until now, almost no one knew how close the liberation of Europe came to being canceled by a letter that arrived at 3 a.m., or how one man's refusal to be deceived changed the course of human history.